speak a little bit about the plan for the next few months as per Jeffy's posting. So everyone's joining me for the battle as well. Wonderful. Okay, fantastic. So Edward's kindly agreed to sponsor tickets to Israel for all of us and accommodation. So we'll carry on the show there. That's great. Just first of all, just thanks and appreciation to the shul for making this possible, and wearing the shul hat, Jeffrey, for all the organisation and also for thinking about our part of the shul. And thank you for Adam for continued leadership of our chaburah and for continued work in putting the model in place. As a result of the sabbatical, I would like very much to try and finish the Perek before I leave. And we only have a very limited amount of Shiur left, which is why I wrote on the group that we're going to try and move quite fast. And the plan, which will flesh out to the group a little bit the next couple of weeks, is as per Jeffrey's posting, we have a very, very wonderful Talmud Chacham. Ramati Lawrence has agreed to step in and is a beautiful Maggid and hopefully we'll take another sugya, and that will be a focus for the 3 months I'm away, and then in Mitzvah Hashem we'll get back to continuing. It's probably anyway not a bad time for us to finish Muktza, which we spent quite finish Muktza, not finishing Muktza, but we spent quite a long time on it. So it's not a bad thing for us to move forward onwards. It does mean the last Omid and a half will be a little bit of a rush, but I think it's Kedai. That said, I'm here afterwards if anyone wants to ask any more questions, but that's the plan. I don't really know that I have a share to give today. I have a feeling that it will be more of a summary of the Omud and the shitta of Rashi and Tosfos. I didn't really manage to get anywhere beyond doing my best to sort out a bit of confusion. So I don't know how long the show will take, and I don't know if I'll be adding any value to everyone's insight of the sugya. For those who have missed the last few shiurim, if you're not happy with this year, please listen to the recordings of the past few ones because they were great. But I'm not sure this year will be a great year. All I'm going to just do is try and summarize what I managed to extract from Rashi and Tosfos, and I was just plodding hard work of working one's way through a sugya, which is quite tough. Basically, the shitta of Rashi, in the simplest way of understanding, is that we are learning a sugya of boineh. That's how Rashi seems to understand the sugya. So even though there's Muktza concepts initially, and originally the sugya was about yichud kelim, and whether something is part of the keli and therefore not Muktza, or it's just a stone or a stick and therefore it is Muktza, and to what degree you need to dedicate or specify and repurpose the stone into becoming an integral part of the keli in order for it to be deemed a part of the keli and not Muktza. That was all Kuf Chafei Omid base. That was the first Omid. We come to now the bottom of the Omid and turning on to the next page, and the sugya becomes a sugya of boineh. That's how Rashi basically understands the sugya, and therefore the reason why you need kosher and toloi is because of boineh. So when we get to the kachaloin, it's now a new sugya. It's the second Mishna. It's not about Muktza, it's about boineh. That's how Rashi learns things. I'm belaboring that point because I'm a little uncomfortable with it. It is a bit funny that the Mishna shifts center. The answer to the question is twofold. There is a superficial commonality between the two parts of the Mishnah, and there is a deeper commonality between the two parts of the Mishnah, and this is quite important. The superficial comparison is they're both halachas about when something is attached and detached, whether it's made enough for its new function that it's not considered Muktza, but it's considered part of the keli. That's the Reish of the Mishnah. It's not considered boineh, it's just considered like opening and closing a door, and therefore it's not boineh. And so there's a sort of superficial comparison between the two halves, and there's a conceptual comparison between the two halves, because to the degree that it's part of the keli, by definition, there's no binyan taking place. Binyan is attaching two parts together to make them into a unit. If they are always a unit, because they were always only to be together, then there won't be boineh. So there's a link between the two concepts, but in halacha, we're dealing with a different idea. I don't see that's how Rashi learns the sugya. Let's just have a quick look at Rashi. So we've got Rashi Divrei Masel, I'm looking wrong. Divrei Masel Lema Ma. This is the top of Kuf Chavav Amud Aleph. Deloi Peligi Rabbanon Ela Toliyah. Rabbi Lezer Boi Kosher V'Toloi. V'afilu Kosher Moshe Nigro LaOretz Choshev Le Rabbi Lezer K'Shem Tim Min HaKarka or Boineh Be'Lechat Chila, and therefore it's Boineh. So basically, the Gemara says again. I don't know how much people manage to work through the Sugya in Rashi and Tosfos. So if you're not clear on what I'm saying, it doesn't matter. The concept should be clear. That in Rashi Divrei Masel Ma, Rashi Lema Ma, Rashi explains that the nidun in the Gemara is it if something, the first suggestion of the Gemara is that the Chachamim hold that whether something is attached or detached, there's no boineh, because it was always omed to be joined, and therefore it's like opening and closing a door, it's not boineh. And the Gemara says, no, maybe we should interpret the Mishnah as l'chumra, that even if it is attached, there's a debate about whether it's boineh or not, because if it's attached, but sitting on the ground, and you need to remove it from the ground and reattach it and position it, even that could be a boina. That's how Rashi learns Sukkah, and Rashi learns Sukkah about melachas boina and midaraisa b'pashtus at this stage is a nidun in deraisa of boina.
Rashi is simply saying, is it muchan or not muchan? So that's the link.
So yes, but you have to be careful with your use of the word muchan, because again, I want to summarize the ratio of the Mishnah according to Rashi is Muktza, the sefer of the Mishnah is Boina. Why are the two Mishnahs together? The answer is there's a superficial comparison. They're both about attaching and detaching things and so on. And then there's a conceptual comparison, because to a degree, they're both playing with the same idea. If it is a permanent attachment, then it won't be Muktza because it's attached to a Kedi, it's part of the functionality of a Kedi. And Boina also calls on you to ask the same question. Has it already got the functionality, in which case it's not Boina? Or are you creating a new attachment, in which case it would be Boina? So there is a conceptual comparison of, is it made anyway is it, even when it's physically detached, does it still have the role of being part of the Chaloin or the building, and therefore it wouldn't be Boina? But be careful when you use the language of Muchan, because Muchan is a Muktza concept word, not a Melachas Boina concept word. The parallel concept with Boina is this is not a binyan michodosh, it's not a new binyan, because it was always part of the binyan, because it was like opening and closing shutters of a window or opening and closing a door. That's so it's quite a high level conceptual link. It's not really ostensibly linked. Yes.
In the fact of the one says not muchan.
Although Rashi does say that means muchan.
Rashi does mix the languages, but the muchan is doesn't mean the same concepts. Yeah. But sorry, Karen, you're pointing out the language of the Gemara is mutukan. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
No, but
it's true that's in Rav Abba or Rav Kahana, but I'm assuming that even in Rav Abba or Rav Kahana, we're dealing with Hilchos Boina, not Hilchos Achana. I don't know if that assumption is correct. I extrapolated from this Rashi that Rashi learns the whole sugya is a sugya of Boina. That's the simplest understanding I have of it.
What is the Rashi? How's that not that?
I don't. Let me lay out the problem, and then I'll come back to you. Let's just look at the next Rashi. There's another Rashi in Divrei Maschil. Let's look further down the Omud. Let me just get the right Rashi. V'hamunach. Yeah. If you go halfway down the Omud, basically the flow of the Gemara is now talking about yet another scenario, which is Naga Hanigra Noilimbai. So just to get the Metzias correct, my best understanding of this is that you have like a bolt, like the bolts that you have over here on the door. There's a number of ways of locking doors. One way of locking a door is you have a hole. In this case, it's in the lintel, but in that case, it's in the mifton, the doorstep, and you just slide a bolt in, and that locks the door. That stops the door closing. So Yoseit is a peg, and Rashi translates Naga Yoseit, a peg, a yated. Shatoikim before that you insert into you fix into the hole SheBeMifton on the doorstep. The known and that's how you lock the door. So it's a bolt, what we would call a bolt. So Rashi there says, and there the Gemara says that Vamunach kan v'kan osa. If it's munach, so the bolts are not like bolts that we have, which are attached with like a bracket to the door, but you literally put the bolt down and then you pick it up. It's just like a stick, a strong stick. When we learned melachot bishul, we learned that you take a damp branch and you bake it in the oven and it becomes, all the water bubbles out and now it becomes hard, like a hard yated, like a tent peg, and then you use this peg and you stick it into the hole and that keeps the door closed. So there Rashi says, there the Gemara says that if it's munach, it will be osa. In other words, it's not attached to the door, it's not hanging from the door, it's not munach. Why does it become osa? Because it's completely detached. And if it's completely detached, then you're attaching something from new and therefore it's boina. It says Rashi v'munach, she'ena kosho klal, it's not attached at all. When you remove it from the hole, you just put it down on the ground. Hilchach, and therefore when you pick it up, when you pick up on Shabbos, bonahuv, it's a drysa who up mikdash, it's a drysa and it's bona. So those are the two pieces of Rashi that are evidence that Rashi is learning. It's a binyan sugya. Now, is Rashi learning that it's only a binyan sugya? I think so. I don't know for sure, but I think so. When the Gemara originally wanted to explain bein kach or bein kach means whether it's kosher or not kosher, I think Rashi's learning that's also binyan. Rashi says muchan me'as melachot. I think he's explaining the svara of why it's not boina. It's not called boina because it's muchan for that. It's designed for that purpose. So you're not making a new binyan, you're simply opening and closing the door. This pakak is just the doorway. It's just a door off hinges rather than a door on hinges. That's how I understood Rashi, rightly or wrongly. I don't know. Yeah.
We learn that yes, Rashi is learning binyan as a basis for it, but essentially as an offshoot of that, these things either become klisha mafdal isser or klisha mafdal heter, or if it's attached to the building, maybe not clear at all, and therefore it's really a Muktza sugya. But the way we get to it being a Muktza sugya is because these are kalim of boner.
But but that's not what Rashi says. Rashi says it's boina. Rashi says that that's boina midraisa.
Says muchan met boner.
Okay, even if at that point Rashi's using the language of muchan, the next Rashi switches clearly into boina, and the Rashi that I just read of Hamunach very clearly says this is boina deraisa. We're well beyond the realm of Muktza now. We're talking about melachot deraisa.
Because it's boner, the kalim.
That's probably true. Yeah, that's probably true. But that's not what the sugya is about. It's probably true that if it's boina, then it's Muktza, because if you can't use it,
Understand learning what is binyan and what's not binyan to understand what the status of these items is.
But it's not the point. That's the sugya is not talking about whether it's muktzah or not. The sugya says if you insert this peg, you've done melachas boina. It's also true that if the peg is only usable for inserting into doors and you can't do that because it would boina, then it'd be muktzah. What muktzah would it be? Klishim nachtanisa probably, or maybe even worse than a kli, maybe muktzah machas gavna. Who knows? But that's the second stage sugya. At the end of the day, the sugya has been mechadish that this is melachas boina min haTorah. So Rashi says it's about boina. That's understood. There is a Rosh which I have on my phone, and I was torn between posting it on the group or not because just getting to Rashi and Tosa is enough. But given that people are interested in this, I will post the Rosh on the group, and the Rosh, we'll come to the Rosh a little later. The Rosh goes like Tosus and says there's a number of sugyas intersecting here, but it's very clear in the language of the Rosh that he understood Rashi to be learning boina all the way through. The sugya is a sugya, boina finished. That's how Rashi learns the sugya. Have a look at the Rosh. Okay, so this is Rashi's sugya. There's then an array of three Tosusim, more or less. Tosus Bain, Tosus Amunach, and Tosus Rabbi Yehuda, in which Tosus learns that there's also Muktza going on over here in our sugya, and it's a tiltal. And just to summarize, I'm not saying the Kedushim, just working through it. Tosus in, let me just try and keep my cheshbon right. Tosus in Divrei Maschil Bain said that the reason why you need kashira is because of tiltal and not because of binyan. And Tosus says that the logical Tosus is that if the sugya was a sugya of binyan, how can you bring a raya from pakak? Because pakak is clearly not binyan, because all it is Tosefes oil arai. Okay, so just summarize, the sugya Rashi learns that the sugya is a sugya of boineh. Says Tosfos, I don't get it, because you're comparing Bekak to Nagar, and with Nagar, Rashi says it's boineh, and with Bekak, it's clearly not boineh, because it is a Tosefes Oil Arai, and Tosefes Oil Arai is mutter. There's no issue of boineh. Even without Kshira, like Tosfos proves from the Sugya Mishotzi and so on. So Tosfos says that the Naga is a sugya of, and Bekak is a sugya of Muktza. That's really a summary of Tosfos Divrei Maskil Bain. Sorry. Because the Bekak is not a Keli, and therefore, what is it? And this really leads us into Kuf Chavov Omud Beis, that a Tosefes to a building might fall in the opposite of whatever the opposite of a Goldilocks zone is. It may fall between the cracks and end up as Muktza, because it may not be boineh, but nonetheless not be a keli, not a utensil that you use, and therefore be Muktza. Therefore not be muchen for a use, and therefore be Muktza. It's not a kli. But therefore Muktza machmas gufo. Not a kli, and therefore Muktza machmas gufo, yeah. Yeah. Tosfos makes a brief mention of this. Tosfos says it's I think it's in Tosfos Amonach. He says look in the widest line in Tosfos Divrei Maskil Hamonach, and Tosfos says he says you need more than other kli tashmish. But normal kli tashmish is enough to be the masak in them. Why? If you shem tashmish bias, this is different because it's a tashmish bias. Because it's like kissa kakos, it's like lids that you put on holes in the ground, which is not really a kli. It just sits and does its job just by being. I'm picturing you sometimes see these in the streets when they've dug a hole for laying pipes. They put one of these hard plastic sheets across. So that's not a kli, because it's just doing the function of karka. On the other hand, it is something that you want to handle and use, but it's not a kli, and therefore it needs it's less muchen, unless you need to do more to make it muchen for its function. That's better what's going on here. Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's on Rashi sheet, but I thought it was a temporary addition to a binyan keva. Yeah, not a binyan keva.
So yes, so Tosfos's kasha is built on the assumption that there can be no isabona over here, and Rashi may well argue and hold that there is an isabona over here. Yeah.
Arguing on the is this a binyan keva? Is Tosfos thinking this as a window in isolation to the building?
No.
Temporary, it turned the whole thing to Halacha.
Yes, the latter is a lomdish machlokas, a conceptual machlokas about how to categorize it. Yes, and we sort of saw that at the bottom of Kuf Hey Omud base, when we saw the machlokas about Ein Oisen Al Arai, is the concept of Tosefes Arai to a binyan keva applicable over here or not? And Rashi seems to say yes, and Tosfos not. So yes, correct. Yeah. Yes.
The reason why Rashi doesn't hold that the cut will be an oil arai, refer to it as a bonnet, because he only holds that oil arai will be on the top rather than on the side. That's the main reason?
That's the earlier sukkah, yes. Yeah, the earlier sukkah is Rashi says yes. But I don't want to go back to the earlier sukkah, but yeah, that's what we saw Machlokes there in the earlier sukkah. Yeah, sure.
Rashi down there, I've only seen it now for the first time. Rashi says it's Messi Kamosa for opinion.
Yes.
It looks like you're adding
yes.
Opinion. So would Rashi say that in Pekak it's only a Durabonon opinion?
Yes, yeah. Listen to the recordings of the earlier sukkah. As much as I'm not sure this year is a good year, that was a good year. So, I mean, seriously, I'm just trying to summarize Tosfos here. I'm not sure I've got anything more to say on the sukkah than that. But yes, the answer is yes. And we discussed their two kids, in Rashi and other things. Yeah. Okay, so more or less, I've tried to give you a summary of Tosfos Divrei Maskil Vamonach. Punchline, take home line is that Rashi holds it's a sugya of Boina, and Tosfos holds that the machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama in Naga, to which the Gemara is Medameh, the machlokas of Rabbi Lezer and the Rabbanon in Pekach, is machlokas in Muktza. And the reason why there's a Muktza Nidon over here is because of this concept of Tashmish Bayis, which is like the Kisoi, Boas, and other things that we'll see later. Is that a reasonably clear summary, even if you're not clear of all the maths of everything? Rosh says the Sukkah of Bona, Tos says the Sukkah of Muktza. Why is there Sukkah of Muktza? Because we're not dealing with a classic Kedi over here. We're dealing with structural things that just sit and do their job by sitting rather than being used. And that's a summary, basically, of that Tosfos. So yeah, show me.
And everyone agrees that a much that articulated earlier is a thing of a much of it enough. It doesn't need a tikkun shel ma'aser.
Everyone agrees.
The Rashi agrees it doesn't need a tikkun shel ma'aser. Whether or else it's tikkun.
Say that again one more time, sorry.
The first Tosfos brings two premises.
Yes.
The first one that is only a tikkun shel, that you don't need a tikkun shel ma'aser, and it's enough a tikkun machshava.
Yes.
Rashi agrees with that.
L'chora, yeah. Rashi doesn't mention anything about tikkun ma'aser, yeah. Yeah, Rashi does the muchan, yeah. Yeah, seemingly Rashi agrees with that, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Tosfos Divrei Maskil Rabbi Yehuda. Now, again, I don't want to confuse us too much with the cheshbon, but basically the summary of Tosfos is that he asks that there is a stira in Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Again, if you haven't seen the maths, don't worry too much about the maths. I just want to bring out the take-home point, but just for those who are holding the maths of the Sukkah, just to summarize it, that he says there's a stira in Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel with in how we understand the Sukkah. And basically, the stira is that with a Naga, he holds you need Kashira, and with Chorios, if you remember Chorios Satakel, which we learned, he holds you don't need Kashira. And Tosfos' answer is that, as we just said, the view of Tosfos is that Naga is only because of Tiltul, and Pekach also only because of Tiltul, and that's how we answered the comparison of the Gemara between Naga and Pekach. But Rav Yehuda holds that with Naga you need Kashira because of Binyan. And therefore it's not similar to Chorios where there's no Binyan going on. So just to summarize that Tosfos says that Rav Yehuda agrees with Rashi, if you like, you can put it that way. Rav Yehuda says there is a problem with Binyan in Naga. With Chorios, there's no binyan. These are broomsticks. There's no sugya of binyan. But with Naga, which is a bolt which is attached to the door, there is a sugya of binyan, and that according to Rav Yehuda. And Rav Yehuda introduces binyan, and that's why he requires kshira. Whereas with Chorios, where it's just a muktza din, you don't need kshira. Okay, so to summarize that, the first Tosfos says that the sugya of Naga and Pekach is the sugya of Tiltul. The second Tosfos says that Rav Yehuda introduces with Naga the concept of binyan, and that's why he requires kshira. And therefore, what we have here is two sugyas going on at the same time. There's two halachic things that the Gemara is working with, both Muktza and binyan. And Rabbi Yehuda requires kashira because of binyan, and that's why with Chorios binyan is not relevant. That's a summary of that Tosfos for those who managed to see it. If you didn't manage to see Tosfos, don't worry. Again, just hear the concept that Tosfos learns. There's both things floating around. Yes.
Coming to this idea, trying to negate the idea that it's the ultimate binyan. Then you have to come to the conclusion that don't associate binyan, then is that the question possible the original idea?
Tosfos doesn't say that I'm in Misvara convinced that Rashi is wrong and there can't be binyan over here. He says that with Pekach there can't be binyan, and therefore in the comparison between Pekach and Naga, it can't be a binyan comparison. Because with Pekach, Tosfos says it's binyan ara and it can't be binyan. With Naga, Rav Yehuda holds it is binyan. Tosfos is simply coming from the Stoma de Gemara that compares the two. You see that the Stimas Talmud is assuming they're comparable, in others not to worry about binyan. But Rav Yehuda holds there is binyan. It's not that per se they're correct. Rav Yehuda wouldn't have put the two together. The Gemara is putting them together because it doesn't go like Rav Yehuda. Yeah, I'm stuck here with a mathematical problem in the sugya, which is why couldn't Tosfos give a different answer to Chorios and Naga, which is that Chorios doesn't need kashira because it's a real tashmish, it's a broomstick, and Naga needs kashira because it's it's a structure of a house. And I just spent a few minutes explaining in the earlier Tosfos that structural work in a house, structural things placed in houses may be a more common type of Muktza. So maybe that's why you need Kashira. And I do not know for the life of me what the answer to this question is. Tosfos asks this massive question: I have a steer of Yehuda, do you need Kashira or not? But does Muktza need Kashira or not? Why is Tosfos not? I mean, the answer to the question is Tosfos thinks that even though it's a more common type of Muktza, it doesn't make sense that it should need a different. Kashira shouldn't make a difference, but it is a more common type of Muktza. Tosfos explains that with Chorius it's a Kedi, and Kedim maybe a Tikkun is enough, whereas with what we're calling what's the language of Tosfos that refers to as Kli bias. So tashmish bias, that's you're not using a tashmish bias, it just sits there. It's doing a Masechet, it's acting as a floor or as a wall, and therefore it's more Muktza. But Tosfos does not consider this a reasonable explanation of why you should need Kashura or not. So I hear the math to the answer. Tosfos would say to me, Zobin, you're wrong. There's no reason that Kashura should make a difference, that Kashura should be different in the Muktza. But I don't know why that's so obvious to Tosfos or not. Does this make sense to people, this question? So yeah.
Why tying it? If it's just because it's more common with the Muktza, why we're tying it? Negate it's a tie because it's strict Muktza. Why would that change it? If it's such a bad Muktza, it's not clean. So tying it doesn't make it a clean.
It's a good question, and something around that is the answer to Tosfos. That okay, Kashira, and now what? But you're still not using S as a KD. But we do find that Kashira means it's dedicated for a certain purpose and a certain use. Because even lids of pits, if you give a beis achiza, that means you're using it as a lid. Use of a lid, again, a lid has a cover. Says the, I'm ruining now my future shiurim, but basically the lomzas that comes out in Kuf Chaf and base is that if the Gemara is a pella, in Kuf Chaf and base, it talks about covers of pits, and it says if they have a handle, they're not Muktza. If they don't have a handle, they are Muktza. What on earth is going on? What's the sugya? What is it telling us something about pit cover manufacturing in medieval in Bovel in the 400s? Like what's the sugya? The answer is that if you have a cover of a lid without a handle, the answer is it's karka. It's just a cover of a bow. If there's a handle, I'm using it as karka. Using it as karka, it now becomes back to being a bow. So you see that even building functionality, if it's designed to be used, I'm not. It's not just a wall. A pakak isn't just a wall. It's something that I take in and out and use as a function. I use it as a wall. That makes it a kli. So you could have heard that kashira means I'm using this as a bolt. Why can that not be a use? The answer is Tosfos says kashira is not like a handle because a handle is allowing me to use it. Kashira is just attaching it to the door. It's a bit of a subtle story. I'm not. The answer to the question must be like that. That kashira is not a handle. It's just the use of it. But I don't really have it clear why Tosfos is so. Yeah, that's what Tosfos is saying. It's not about my use. It doesn't change it into use. Okay, so just summarize, we're not left completely confused. On Sunday we're going to continue. I see that I'm going to need more time on the sugya, but Rashi says boina. Tosfos says not because conceptually it can't be there's boina going on, but you see the Gemara in the comparison thinks it's a sugya of Muktza. Rabbi Zobin, the Gemara, in order to answer the stira, Tosfos does say it's possible there's also boina going on over here. And the just in terms of the concepts of Muktza that we draw out of this, there is a problem. There's some types of use in which you're not really using something. It's just being. It's doing. It's a lid. It's a cover of a pit. It's a wall of a house. That's a Muktza machmas gufa. It's not a kli unless you kli-ize it. You make it into a kli by tying it or putting a handle on it, and you're saying I'm using it as a cover of a pit. I'm using it as a pakak of a house. That's what we get out of basically the maths of the Omid. For those interested in extra activity, I'll post the Rush on the group just so you can see it because he does discuss about Rush and other things. Okay, I wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Face argument, I don't